All right, welcome back for the next video in my marathon recording session. Prepare for me to absolutely lose my mind. I this is the promised rant in a shack from the sovereign citizen from the previous video, although this, I believe, is about his most recent arrest, which is featured on Van Balion's channel. Because, like I said in the last video, this guy is a frequent flyer. He's Van Balion has featured at least 3 of his traffic stops. He has not learned his lesson. Like I said, I think he's a true believer sovereign citizen, and he just he gets worse. And the this video is almost 21 minutes. I can almost guarantee I won't get through all 21 minutes because I will lose my mind, and this 21 minutes could be a 3-hour video. I'm not kidding. And but before we get into it, so for those of you who are new here, like I said, I covered this guy in my last video. So if you haven't watched it, go watch it. I'll try to remember to put a link below. But for those of you who are new, I'm Joe. I am an attorney licensed in Utah. And so, yeah, like, share, subscribe, do all the fun YouTubey things. And this guy, like I said, he's a true believer. He's absolutely nuts. And you're right out the gate. He comes out swinging, and you are not going to believe his first argument here. No spoilers, but it's wild.
Well, in the state of Texas, by state law, we are allowed to go 5 miles an hour over the speed limit.
By law, we're allowed to go 5 miles an hour over the speed limit. Well, number one, he says that a bunch of times. He says that a lot. By law, we're allowed. But he never cites the law. Probably because it's not real. And I mean, I realize I said 2 videos ago, the in the first video I recorded in this marathon down there in Florida, sovereign citizen arrested, the guy that was driving 70 in a 40. I said, if you're within about 10% of the speed limit, you're probably not going to get pulled over because it could be a calibration error, a rounding error. It's generally just not going to be worth their time pulling you over. So chances are, in most situations, you can get away with driving 5 over. If I remember from like I said, this rant isn't about the video, the arrest we just covered. It's about the one where the ZZ Top music is playing in the background. So because I like money and didn't want to be demonetized because of ZZ Top, as great as ZZ Top is. So if I remember right, he was pulled over for going 5 over, but also because his truck was unlicensed, unregistered. So it's like, if you were registered, would you have gotten away with 5 over? Yeah, they probably wouldn't have pulled you over. But because they pulled you over, they're going to get you for everything. And that includes 5 over. Because there is no law. Like, let's say the speed limit, I don't know what road he was driving on, but let's say the speed limit was like it was in the 70 and a 40. Let's say he was driving 45 and a 40. if the state said, well, we want you to drive 40, but you can drive 5 over, then they would have said it at 35. Or they would have just not had the law in the first place and set it at 40. It's almost like speed limit means speed limit, not speed limit plus 5. But maybe I just don't know how to English.
Well, the cop or the sheriff unlawfully pulled me over for doing what I can legally do in the state of Texas. And they detained me falsely under that false pullover and detainment.
Okay, rant time. It's not detainment. You were detained. It's a detention, not detainment, detention.
And then because I wouldn't hand over my driver's license so he can run it for warrants. The others are everything else is an excuse now. Uh, and so he retaliated and arrested me for speeding and not having a registration on my truck. And he put in there having an invalid registration.
Well, I was going to say invalid registration. Does that mean he has a fictitious registration, like one of the Freedom from Government Trent Goodbody private tags, or a UCC 1-308 tag? Or it could be the state of Texas. The code is fictitious or no registration is the same code section. So that's what he was written under, because it doesn't matter. It's the same thing. But you'll notice he wasn't arrested for 5 over. He was arrested for failure to ID, obstruction. But you also heard he wasn't just pulled over for what I have a legal right to do in Texas. Drive 5 over. He was pulled over for driving an unregistered vehicle. Does he not think? Obviously he doesn't, but
I had no registration on my truck, so he had no idea that it was invalid because there's no registration.
So hear me out. Hear me out. You had no registration. So in the absence of a valid registration, it's invalid.
I don't have one on my vehicle, so but he falsely pulled me over for doing something I had a legal right to do in the state of Texas, so everything should be thrown out of court. Everything was done under false pretenses. Everything after that, the 5 mile an hour over the speed limit, we're allowed that in the state of Texas. So
still no citation to where it says you're allowed 5 miles an hour over. And it's like, remember I said, generally speaking, if you're within 10% of the speed limit, you're probably going to be fine. So, if you're driving 77 in a 70, you're probably going to be fine. But let's say 5 over as a blanket, like if you're in a 10-mile-an-hour zone. I admittedly, there aren't many of those on the road. That's generally in a parking lot or something. But if you're in a 10-mile-an-hour zone, 5 over, that's a 50% excess. Whereas I mentioned the other day, I drove my dad to Fort Collins, Colorado last week. And through Wyoming, because there's nothing between Laramie and Evanston, basically. Well, between Laramie and Rock Springs, let's say. It just nothing. It's 80. So 5 over. Well, I'm terrible at mental arithmetic. You'd think with finance degrees I'd be great, but no, I use a calculator. But 5 over 85, that's 6.25%. So you're well within that 10% I mentioned. But like, it just, why do I mention this? Because it goes to show the absurdity of what he's saying. Because even if there were a grace area, it wouldn't be a set, it would be a percentage. Because just saying a blanket 5 over is legal, 5 miles an hour as a percentage of the speed limit, I mean, and especially in Texas, because there's areas with an 85-mile-an-hour speed limit in Texas. So it's just, it makes no sense. Even if there's an unofficial leeway that most cops will give you, as long as you're not a dickhead.
After I prove my case in court, and I get everything dismissed and everything, I'm filing a complaint, and I'm suing the sheriff, and I'm gonna see if I can sue his supervisor.
Has this guy been watching Delete Laws? Frankly, I think he has been, because he mentions torture cuffs, I think, in this video, but I can't remember. But amazingly, though, he's at least a little smarter than Delete Laws, because he's going to wait until after he wins his criminal case to sue. Because what's the point in suing if you haven't even won your criminal case? It doesn't make sense. But I would love to see the judge's face when this guy gets up in court and says, "Your Honor, by Texas law, I can drive 5 over the speed limit." The judge just might have to call a recess, because they die of laughter, because it's that ridiculous. I mean, if this area of Texas, I don't know where it is, but if they do have Zoom court or YouTube court, please, somebody grab it and send it to me, because I will die of laughter. But and then the federal judge, of course, when he sues,
because that's where he gets all his orders. That's what, to pull people over if we're doing something that we have a legal right to do in the state of Texas.
And for those of you who followed me with the delete laws lawsuits, and I say lawsuits, that includes the Floyd Wallace one. He's talking, suing the supervisor. What is that? That's Monell liability that delete laws loves to assert, even though he's made no factual assertions. He's just listed the elements, the types of Monell liability there could be, but you've got to list the actual policy or actual pattern and practice. And where is their policy? The Texas sheriffs, where is their policy to pull you over for something you have a legal right to do? Or is there policy for pulling you over for exceeding the posted speed limit, which you do not have a right to do?
So, and plus, I was slowing down. My foot was up off the gas, slowing down. And because I hit that speed limit sign, it says 65 at 70, 5 miles an hour over.
Okay, so when I said 45 and a 40, just as a guess, I was 70 and a 65. But it's almost like slowing down means you were exceeding the speed limit. Slowing down isn't a defense. If you have not reached the posted speed limit by the time you reach the posted speed limit sign, you're speeding. The speed limit sign is not a suggestion to start slowing down when you reach it. I mean, if it's not easily visible, there's going to be a sign saying reduced speed ahead. I mentioned driving through Wyoming. Well, you drive Highway 89 through Star Valley in the far west of Wyoming, literally, half mile west of the road is Idaho. But Star Valley, the speed limit on 89 is generally 65 miles an hour until you hit a town where it becomes Main Street and the speed limit is 35. You enter town at 65, you're getting pulled over. Ask me how I know.
He pulled me over. And I have it in writing. He gave me a warning for speeding. And so.
You got a warning! You got a warning for speed. So it's almost like you weren't even arrested for speed. You were cited for speed. You were arrested for failure to ID and for driving an unregistered vehicle. Your speed was a warning. You can't make this up.
He falsely pulled me over and falsely detained me for not breaking a traffic rule or law. But it's a rule. It's an ordinance. It's an edict. It's a policy. It's not a law or regulation, or else regulations, rules, policies, or ordinances, edicts, all that would not exist. It would just plainly state law.
The speed limit is an edict, an ordinance, a policy, but not law. But like I said, I live in Salt Lake City. In Salt Lake City, if there's no posted speed limit on a road, it's 20 miles an hour. They just changed it from 25. It's now 20. And yes, that is city ordinance. But it has the force of law. It's a law. Ordinances are laws. They're like I said, I'm not a Texas resident. I'm not a Texas attorney. I'm a Utah attorney. There are, under the Utah Traffic Code, there are speed limit laws, and pretty much anything, any road that is 65 miles an hour that's set by the Highway Patrol. That's set by the state, by the Department of Transportation. So it's not going to be an ordinance set by the city. It's set by the state. But even from the state traffic code, that there's going to be some language that says city roads that the speed limit is not set by the state, the city has the authority to set a speed limit. There's going to be some language to that effect. So even if it's just a policy, it still has the force of law. It is law.
It is a law. That's it, a law. Like the laws in the Bill of Rights, a law.
Like the laws in the Bill of Rights, like the 10th Amendment, which is in the Bill of Rights, because, the Bill of Rights is generally considered amendments 1 through 10, inclusive. So the 10th Amendment in the Bill of Rights, which says, I'm not going to quote it exactly because I don't quote things exactly, but it says, in effect, the laws not reserved for the federal government are the province of the state. The state gets to pass the laws that the federal government hasn't claimed. So, since the federal government hasn't claimed authority to set speed limits in Texas, at least, well, even on the interstate, because there's a reason that the interstate speed limits vary from state to state. Like I said, here in Utah, in urban areas, it's 70. On the fringes of urban areas, 75. Most of the rest of the state, the interstate is 80 because it's empty. But you go to Washington, and I think it's 65, period. Or maybe that's Oregon. Or Washington and Oregon. I've got cousins in Coos Bay, and they complain about the slow speed limit driving on 84 coming to visit. But that's beside the point. The point is, it's the Bill of Rights, the 10th Amendment. That's the constitutional hook. Remember the last video I talked about the constitutional hook? So for a huge percentage of federal laws, the Commerce Clause is that constitutional hook that gives the federal government the authority. The 10th Amendment in the Bill of Rights is that constitutional hook for state laws.
And the amendments to the Constitution, 11 through 27, law. All law. Traffic laws do not trump the laws of the Constitution. And people don't want to understand that. These trolls.
They don't, because it's the 10th Amendment.
They're stupid, and they want to stay stupid. The Constitution is above traffic laws. And in the Constitution, I have a right to do what I was doing.
Oop. Wrong button.
Well,
Because I hit the wrong button, I told you I wouldn't get through the whole thing. But the Constitution gives him the right to do what he was doing. Citation needed. And with that, that's about all I could take anyway, but I'm going to leave you there on this one. So I will have the link, but don't give him the view. This video only has like 80 something views, and he doesn't deserve any more because it's insane rambling. But please do like and subscribe and share this video, and I will see you in the next video in my marathon. So thanks for joining me. Bye-bye.